G'day, Lewis. Big news this week.
Oh, what's that, Dan? The release of the Epstein files?
Yeah, that's happening at the end of the episode.
Oh,
but
great.
right now, we are launching a Rational Corporate. Yes, Lewis and I are available for your end-of-year parties, your convenings, your conferences. What else will we do, Lewis, for money?
Well, do you know I obviously can strip if you need that, if you need someone to do that. If that's the kind of thing you're going for, Dan can do jokes about your specific business interests, and I can slowly take off an item of clothing as the night goes on.
It'll be a very particular business for that particular offering. We will bring basically a comedy panel approach, drill down on your company, and say the things you can't say. We'll pack it with great comedians. We'll make fun of your industry, make fun of your boss, make content for our show, most importantly, and it'll all be delivered at your company's face while its finance department, writes it off as an expense, which is really good. Yeah.
It's like, when you have an awards show like the Oscars and the hosts get up and they just gently roast everybody. And that'll be us. We can turn your shitty company into the Oscars.
No, not the shitty company, shitty corporate event. There's so many boring corporate events. No more boring corporate. There is no need to have a boring corporate event.
Because at the end of the day, the Oscars is a corporate event. It's an industry awards night.
The Logies is effectively these days a small business awards.
Unfortunately, I think it's on its last legs. I don't think there's rumours it's gone.
No, well, there's rumours people aren't turning up because Channel 7 have rigged the voting. That's what's happening.
You're telling me that Channel 7, my Channel 7, the
Ben Roberts-Smith, the Ben Roberts-Smith network.
You're telling me the man
is skullduggery, filled with skullduggery, and is not a good actor?
This is the first I'm hearing of it. I think if Sam Pang hears about this, he might not host again.
The live shows are great fun. If you listen to any of our live shows, we kind of bring that energy to your party. It's like a party. We do our research. We'll do our research to really find a great angle for your industry. And and depending on your budget, we can book really big names. Like Mel Buttle. Like, who's like the biggest person in your phone book, Lewis? Who's like the most famous person that you reckon would A, do a Rational Fear, and B, we'd probably get enough money to book?
That's a great question. The most famous, we've both got obviously Andrew Denton, but he says no all the time.
He says no every time. He has never done the show.
Unless your industry has something to do with killing old people, then he'll probably do it.
Yes, give us a call. We're Dr. Kevorkian, we're ready.
If you're bringing in those suicide pods from Europe, he'll do it.
Or look, if you do have a smaller budget, we can't get big names, but we can get long names like Alexi Toliopoulos. That's a really long name. We can definitely get Alexi. So the Irrational Fear Corporate Show, making jokes at your company's expense account. Give us a call. I'm recording my end of Irrational Fear on the land of the Gundungurra. Let's start the show.
The following program contains rude words like Mark Latham, blockchain, and Twitter. Irrational Fear recommends listening by immature audiences. Comedians, experts, laughing at the world as it burns down around us. This is a Rational Fear.
Tonight, as Tasmania goes to the polls this weekend, voters are reminded that it's illegal to put a 1 next to the name of your first cousin. And Clive Palmer's political party has been hacked by cyber criminals, taking addresses and phone numbers with fears that staff are about to get a lot of unsolicited text messages. And new documents reveal what we've always suspected for a long time about Mark Latham. He is a massive piece of shit, in our honest opinion. It's the 19th of July, 2025, and at the end of this episode, we'll read out the Epstein list, or will we?
This is a Rational Fear.
Don't forget to unplug your set.
Welcome to Rational Fear. I'm your host, former special envoy for anti-semantics, Dan Illich, and we've got two of the internet's leading best content makers on the podcast this week. First, it's a bloke whose memes made Peter Dutton lose the election. It's digital shit stirrer and Wiradjuri man James Blackwell. Welcome, James.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Good to be here.
Have you heard from Peter Dutton? Has he been upset with the memes you've made?
No. And look, I'm glad to have not heard from him because we did nothing but hear from him for the last 6 months of my life.
Has he got a sweet, post-election job yet? Has he got or is that
The mining company board job, yeah.
Yeah, or has he got a sweet international
Lobbyist
posting?
for a defence firm. Yeah, I presume he'll end up as ambassador to somewhere fun or not fun, depending on how much Albo likes him.
I did notice that when he conceded, he got up and said, "Big thanks to our people in uniform." I'm like, that was a wink to the defence firm. That was like, hey, people in uniform, give me a job. And next, after years of being an Australian diplomat who wanted to make it big in Hollywood, he's resorted to producing memes about diplomacy on LinkedIn, the Hollywood of business. From International Intrigue, it's Jeremy Dicker. Welcome, Jeremy.
What a burn. Thank you. never had an intro like that, but I love it.
Look, it's just so great to have a former DFAT spy with us on the panel to kind of break down the world's events. What's the most spy-like stuff you've ever had to do?
Well, I can neither confirm nor deny I even know what you're talking about. I'll tell you what, literally day 2 of my first posting in Mexico City, I needed to go and burn some documents. That was probably the most spy-like thing I had to do. I literally had to go out into a yard and burn heaps of classified documents.
Is there a protocol? Is there a way that you're supposed to burn documents, or is it just however you can?
Yeah. There's very clear rules about how it's going to work out. I don't want anyone to think that I was burning the Epstein files or whatever.
No, I don't mean whether
legit.
rules is what you should burn, but I mean, is there a way that they're you should use a fireplace, you should use a document folder? Do you have a special folder that burns internally? Do you have your own device?
Yeah, so I mean, I learned pretty early on. I was like, oh, this won't take too long because I just had a stack of papers, and I learned it was going to take very long by trying to make my own fireplace like some Boy Scout out the back of the ambassador's residence. And then all it takes is a gust of wind, and top secret material is blowing over the fence over to the Mexican next door neighbor. So I just we sort of decided to pivot and go to a furnace, and I literally went to an industrial furnace and paid them $50 and just chucked it all in there. Yeah.
Wow.
That's very surprising because, of course, Mexico, they would have had Taco Tuesday, and at the embassy you would have had Secret Files Friday. And totally different. Yeah.
So there you go. That's the most weird spy thing I've ever done. All above board.
Coming up later, we ask why the Pentagon has bought a mining company, and does the Australian government care about us? No, they don't. But first, here is a message from this week's sponsor.
As president of the big, beautiful United States, I'm very powerful, but there are some things I can't control. Like ice, we all know ice, but they are more powerful than you can believe. What they get rid of is in their name. It's ice. They take out the trash, which starts with a T, but let's stick with I-C-E, okay? We're gonna stick with the I-C-E. For immigrants, they gotta go. I gotta send them to Ecuador, Equinwindow, ICE decides. I have no idea. I don't know how that works. C. Comey's, James Comey, Maureen Comey, any Comey working in the Justice Department will be taken by ICE. I can't stop them. I mean, I could if I wanted to. I want to, but I don't want to, so I can't. They're too powerful. They're very powerful. And that's because of me. And of course, E, one of my favorites, Epstein. It's just the way it is, folks. ICE have taken all the Epstein files. Believe me, I want to get those files back. I can tell you now. But they've been shredded and sent to the hippos in Colombia. Their hippo poop right now is a bad guy, Epstein. I never liked him. I didn't like having my photo taken with him 1,000 times either. I can tell you that much. ICE is too strong. Even me, the most handsome, healthy, with beautiful hair, the most manly president that's ever been president, I can't stop ICE. But let me tell you right now, just remember, ICE is keeping its ice on you. That was a pretty good joke. I just made that up.
Thank you, President Trump. This week's first fear. Albo has been in China walking a diplomatic tightrope with all the elegance of one of Mao's last dances, putting forward a case that Australia is a friend of China no matter who we choose to buy our weapons from. And China put the case to Australia that we are 3 months behind in our rent. The week-long visit culminated in a 2-hour-long conversation with President Xi, which is 2 hours longer than Albo's ever spoken to Donald Trump, and ended in a celebratory banquet where the house band played Paul Kelly, Powderfinger, and Midnight Oil. Typical Chinese musicians, reverse engineering Australian creations and passing it off as their own. Jeremy, as a former diplomat, how are visits like this put together? Like, how do you kind of put a show like this together?
You would be astounded. You would be shocked at how much work goes into every tiny detail. And they do not put that in the DFAT recruitment brochures, I promise you. I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I signed up. It's a lot of work.
So you don't have to have any previous history of event management. Like Lewis and I would be better on putting on shows than people that work at DFAT. Is that right?
Well, I do think, for a lot of what we do, you guys would be fantastic. It is a lot of events, a lot of protocol, a lot of logistics. It's like, well, which seat is the Prime Minister going to sit next to, and who's next to him, and who's opposite. Yeah, it's kind of staggering how much work goes into making a 90-second clip on the news look good. But hey, that's diplomacy.
And so just to be clear, the stuff that we see on the news, that's the best that everyone can do. That's everyone doing their best, is it? That's everyone going, this is going to make them look really good. Like they're really getting along.
Yeah, that is like turning the choreography up to 11.
Wow.
I mean, but like every government really choreographs this stuff totally, but no one does it more than China's official events. We are talking like, I've not seen that level of choreography since like the Step Up movie franchise about cheerleading. Like it is impressive.
They've got Bob Fosse on ice.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, yeah. And like that's kind of how China likes to do things, like no surprises. They got one party in control. They want everything to kind of go according to plan. And yeah, that pops up in the way that world leaders turn up in Beijing as well. It all kind of goes very, very scripted. And that's what we saw this week.
Nothing's very showy. Like nothing's kind of like bells and whistles. It's like very basic stuff. Go to the pandas, look at the zoo, walk along the wall. Here's some kind of bridge. Let's walk over it together as friends. Let's all shake hands in front of very plastic-looking flags. Each thing is like very slow and considered. There's no kind of whiz-banger. It doesn't look like the opening ceremony of the Olympics or anything. Is that intended or...?
Yeah, on both ends. So like for Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader at the moment, I mean, he's going through a lot of economic disruption at the moment, and he does not want to give any sense that he or his ruling party, the Communist Party, are out of touch with the everyday struggles. So he's very mindful about how he looks on the news with his own people watching. And, weirdly, even though we have these big political and, cultural and linguistic differences, the same thing's kind of playing out for Albo. I mean, people are worried about housing affordability, about interest rates and, cost of living. And the last thing he wants to do is, give ammunition to his political foes here in Australia, suggesting that he's kind of living high off the hog on these jaunts abroad. So I think both sides are pretty mindful to look like they're working hard, doing their job, rather than, cracking bottles of champagne at every opportunity.
What a bummer. Is it a bit like the media where you go back in the, like, I wish I was a diplomat in the 80s, like in the heyday when everyone was popping bottles?
Yeah, well, it's like Better Call Saul. Like, God, I miss the 80s, right? Because... Yeah, definitely. It used to be a lot different. I mean, these days it's it's a lot more bureaucratic, a lot more. There's rules to everything you do. You can't jump in a taxi without keeping multiple receipts and giving all kinds of explanations about why you need to jump in a taxi. And that's partly for good reason. This is taxpayers' money. You got to make sure it's being well spent. But yeah, you definitely feel it when you're on the inside. You can barely scratch yourself without getting 3 quotes.
When Amazon bought Bond, that was my pitch. I was like, guys, it's just mostly admin. It's just we're focusing on James Bond's accountant. He's sitting going, this guy's he gets no receipts.
Yeah, well, and he's got to upload his timesheet. Like the next movie is him uploading his timesheet and on the global IT helpline with HQ. Yeah, it's exactly.
It's just him getting frustrated at technology. This computer. We need some new computers, etc.
Exactly.
James, as a close politics watcher, do you reckon this China trip was a big success for Albo?
Yeah, I think, it went off without any issues, which is always a good thing to see for Australian Prime Ministers, not to get their foot in it. I think the real unsung heroes, though, are actually all the journalists who had to think up all the panda-related puns over the last week. That must have been hard for them. Like, I'm sure they've had to really work on that because there were some really good ones, but some really not so good ones. Looking at you, Sydney Morning Herald, just saying. Like, so I think those are the real unsung heroes.
Was there any direct panda to panda? Was there any we don't need to pander to them?
There was some of that. I think my favourite is always pandemonium. That's always a good. Even though the trip wasn't that, it's just always fun to see that on the news. Yeah, those are the unsung heroes, or the journalists who have to like suffer through a banquet and they don't even get to eat anything. They've just got to sit there and watch others eat food. It's like, they deserve our sympathy.
At least they're moving on from the Xi Jinping piece. There's so many good puns around Xi, like she's the man. Oh no, she didn't. I could go on. It's nice to move on from the Xi puns to the panda puns.
Yeah. Well, state-controlled media said the whole event was a huge success. They crowed about it. They said that, quote, Australia and China will cruise steady into the stratosphere. Ooh, isn't that amazing? I guess that's the Australian media equivalent of getting your own ABC panel show. Fearmongers, what does cruise into the stratosphere mean?
It's hard for us to appreciate what it's like to be in a country where everything is controlled by state media, including even social media is controlled by the state. But certainly the state media in China have a certain way with words, and they are very mindful to make their ruling party look good in the eyes of the people. And hey, there's no better way to look good than to say that a US ally came to town and it was all good and we shook hands and we're going to the stratosphere. I mean, it tries to make the leader look good and that he's got everything under control.
Look, it made me feel very nervous because imagine if you went on a date with someone and they sent you a text saying that they're ready to cruise into the stratosphere with you. I mean, it sounds like someone is about to get fucked. That's what it sounds like.
It sounds like it's a sort of like cult. Like this is an old, like we're all going to drink the Kool-Aid and go up into space.
And certainly the stratosphere is the polar opposite of what a nuclear submarine will do, which wouldn't go into the stratosphere at all. It would go deep under the water. So maybe it's just like it's like, pitching us against AUKUS,
I think they're kind of drawing a contrast to how things used to be. You only have to go back a couple of years and whatever the opposite of the stratosphere, that's where Australia-China relations were. They were pretty rough. So I think that, they're kind of having a little bit of fun saying, at least we've got through the dark days.
Jeremy, it was all kind of a strange moment for Albo that week because not only was he in China, but at the same time, the Defence Department wanted demands of Australia for submarines, and at the same time, there was Operation Talisman happening, the massive war games happening in Australia. Like, are these serious kind of bumps in this visit, or is this just like, no, Albo's holding his own? So, who orchestrated that? Like clearly, Talisman. Clearly, you didn't have to go to China the week that the war games were happening in Australia, right?
Yeah. I mean, anytime you're working with China, where, as I said, everything is extremely choreographed, particularly the timing of the visit even taking place, let alone whether they allow it to take place at all, there's a lot of signals being sent. And I think Albo was sending a signal of his own by going to our top our top trade partner, the very same week that we're having these massive military drills with our top security partner. We're talking like 35,000 troops. Our biggest and most complex ever military drills were happening the exact same week. Yeah, so I think that was a pretty clear signal that Albo was trying to send. That at the end of the day, we're close allies of the US. We'll trade a lot with China, but at the end of the day, we'll make our own calls. We're our own nation.
Well, are we our own nation? I mean, that's it's not. We're just not your nation, China. We do belong to somebody. We're still somebody's little prison bitch. It's just not theirs.
I think Xi was wanting to say yet.
As that what they were talking about that and all of the trade and all of the friendship, you were like, the $380 billion that we just spent on, or that we will be spending on these subs, is to protect us from these people, the ones that we're all going, these people are our friends, and we've got a really long future of like good trade with them. And I'm like, just save the money. If these are our new best friends, and we can visit them and shake their hand and say how good is it that we can just sit together and trade. What the fuck are we buying 400,000? Like, what are we defending ourselves from?
If I could just say this, that's the world we're in. So, China is completely dependent on Taiwan semiconductors, but that doesn't stop them from surrounding Taiwan with huge naval armadas and threatening to invade on a daily basis. I understand it's a fair point, but that's the wild world we're in. President Macron of France described our age as we're in the age of predators. And yeah, I don't know. Peace. You got to be careful about.
Was he talking sexual?
This is a rational fear.
What is rational fear?
It's based in fear.
Taking the saddest headlines and giving them a little tickle.
This week's second fear, the Pentagon is getting into mining. They're spending $400 million and buying a mining company in Nevada. Fearmongers, why are they doing this? Are they just trying to, send bigger rocks to Israel to throw into Gaza? Is this what's happening here?
Peter Dutton needs a job. That's his dream job. Defense contractor and a mining company. He's ready to go for that one.
And he's in Vegas, baby. Put it all on red.
Jeremy, what's happening in Nevada? What's going on there?
Well, it's one of those headlines that seems boring, but it is actually really wild. Like, there is a random tiny mine in the middle of the Nevada desert. It's been in and out of bankruptcy. And then, as you say, out of nowhere this year, the Pentagon emerges as its top investor. Apple turns out arrive with a big check to be its top customer.
Wow.
And it's huge. And it's all because of one thing, rare earths. And I mean, rare earths, weirdly, they're not rare. So maybe they should just call them earths. Is that a dad's joke?
No, but they're rare as in they're undercooked, and so they need heaps of processing. They need heaps and heaps of processing to actually be used, right?
Medium rare earths.
Medium rare earths, yeah.
And rare earths, it's one of those things we don't have to think about because we don't have to, but they're in everything, like tech, energy transition, military, medical, and yet, it turns out who controls the world's supply of rare earths? Well, 90% of processed rare earths comes from China. And so, that's kind of the world we're in, where probably that didn't matter, a couple of decades ago. Who cares? But we got a little bit of a warning in 2010 when China and Japan had a little bit of a spat, and it was over some disputed islands. And China kind of surprised the world by flexing, and it cut off Japan's supply of rare earths overnight.
Really? Wow.
So Japan backed down, and the rest of the world was like, whoa, we're going to have to figure out some other sources of rare earths. So this is really the culmination of, 15 years of the world increasingly thinking, China did something similar against the US in 2023, and then tightened its rare earths again in April this year. So it's been a long time coming, but pretty spectacular to see the Pentagon emerge as this, obscure company's top investor.
That's totally wild because I know like rare earths are really big in like renewables and stuff like that. And Trump has previously said that his government wouldn't actually invest in any kind of or like subsidize any rare earths and let the free market sort it out, unlike fossil fuels, which he's subsidizing the shit out of this year. But now it's like, fuck, we need to do something. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Like there was a spokesperson for the miner saying that it's not a free market when the Chinese are manipulating in this way, subsidizing, all of their rare earths. So Trump administration is just giving them a taste of their own medicine.
Yeah.
That's so great. It's like they're doing socialism, so fuck it, so are we.
I mean, it's happening everywhere. Governments are starting to feel a little bit panicky about what's happening in the world and are taking some measures that would have seemed wild a decade ago or 2 decades ago, pulling all their possible strengths. So here we've got, Apple putting its deep pockets. We've got Pentagon putting its, deep tech and military expertise, and a random miner in Nevada, kind of coming all together in a way that would have seemed weird, 2 weeks ago, let alone 2 decades ago. But that's the world we're in.
Is there any chance that this is sort of like a new Area 51? So we're out in the desert, the fence is involved, Apple's got some new technology coming out.
I'm looking forward to the brand new Apple iBombs that they're going to be dropping.
They need a really big hole to put all them Epstein files in. That's what this is for, right? It's a really big hole to bury them.
Yeah.
Your fear is rational.
This week's third fear. The federal government has ruled that the Australian government does not have a duty of care to protect Torres Strait Islanders from climate change, because if the Australian government had a duty of care to some Australians, then they'd have to have a duty of care to all Australians, and that could get really complicated and expensive. Fearmongers, if the government doesn't have a duty of care to look after Torres Strait Islanders, who the fuck do they have a duty of care to look after? James.
Oh, I know this one. Gina Reinhart, Twiggy Forrest, Clive Palmer, that's who the duty of care is for. That's who we have to protect. They're at risk. These working Australians who own mining companies are at risk of having less profits this year than last year. We need to protect them. So that's who they've got to protect. And it's not us, it's not blackfellas, definitely not anyone else. I mean, this follows, obviously a similar case with Anjali Sharma a couple of years ago when Susan Lee was the then Minister for the Environment. around a duty of care to protect our children from the risks of climate change. And that failed on similar grounds when the court said, not our job, go talk to Parliament. Of course, we all went to Parliament. They said, get stuffed as well. So everyone gets to wipe their hands of us there. And the Torres Strait Islander elders took the case forward, modelled off a very successful case in the Netherlands. And also this case is interesting in that it was arguing as well that obviously Indigenous peoples, the government has a unique responsibility to as well as sort of independent sovereign peoples who the government has to work with. And the court again said, not me, bro. Always a fun answer to get from a court, just dibs not. Once again, the Australian court system, the Australian political system protects Gina and Clive over the rest of us. But that's welcome to Australia in 2025, I guess.
The Dutch group ruling was interesting because they took the government to court over emissions targets, saying that their emissions targets weren't enough. I don't know if you know, Holland's a very low-lying area, very damp. Gets a lot of rising damp if the water gets a bit too high. And the court came to an agreement that, they were all right and they needed to take the government to task to make a more ambitious target. Whereas our government said that it wasn't, while they agree that climate risk is significant and they agree that all the science is correct, and they basically washed their hands and said they shouldn't have to change political policy. It wasn't the court's job to change political policy. But how do we make it their job? Surely we can make it the court's job to change political policy.
If it ends up in the High Court, I guess the High Court could say, actually, we're going to change our view on this particular area of law. If it ends up there, I'd like to see that happen. But again, I'm not too hopeful on our High Court judges. They're just as embedded into the way the system works as the lower court judges are. And I don't see them radically changing the government's view. Also, I think the government has an argument to say, well, we won an election just recently on XYZ platform, and if you don't like it, bad luck. But where does it leave Aboriginal people who are going to face the effects of climate change much more rapidly and much more drastically than anyone else?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like with the North West Shelf ruling and this ruling, it feels like I wish, James and we didn't work so hard during It's Not a Race to get Peter Dutton out. We should have got Peter Dutton in.
Yeah, sometimes I lament that, perhaps the hung parliament might have got a better outcome than this landslide over majority. Because you're right, within 4 weeks of the election, North West Shelf expansion to 2070, like there's no need for the government to compromise on any of this climate change stuff because they don't need to. So they can go, we're going to do what we're going to do and bad luck. And that's kind of, perhaps, Dan, we were too successful.
That one was obviously a disappointment for the folks of Torres Strait that brought that case and others across Australia. But there's another big case dropping on Wednesday from the International Court of Justice. And that was because Vanuatu and a few other small low-lying islands have gone to the world's top court asking for an opinion on whether countries owe other countries a duty of care around climate change. Potentially we'll see a different outcome there. That's on Wednesday. But yeah, the whole world is kind of changing. The whole vibe around climate change has changed the last year or so. Brazil, for example, is hosting this year's COP. And it's being hosted by President Lula, who's, his brand is attached to being pro-environment. But the guy still just auctioned off a whole bunch of oil licenses around the mouth of the Amazon. And to prepare for the COP summit, kind of amusingly in a dark way, he flattened a chunk of the Amazon to build a road so that the delegates could get to the summit. So, the whole vibe shift is there, I think, for everyone to see. It's not just in Australia, it's around the world.
Yeah, and Australia is going to be one of those great countries who's horrible on climate, about to host a COP maybe next year in November. Oh, it's great to be a pariah and a champion at the same time. How do we square the circle? Who knows?
I can't wait to see what we flatten.
Oh, no. It's not even that. We're having it in Adelaide. That's the equivalent.
Everything's flat. Everything's already flat in Adelaide. Thanks, James. Yeah.
On the, how do we get politicians to do their jobs, anyone who's ever worked in a government job or government associated job, I worked at public broadcaster for a long time. The job descriptions that you get when you sign your contract are so specific. Like you really, there's a very strict band system of like who gets paid what, and because it's all so bureaucratic, like it is, exactly what your job is going to be. If anyone asks you to do something that isn't on that job, you can go tell them to get fucked. Like, why aren't we giving politicians the same contracts that everyone else in the government has to sign with some job descriptions on it? Like a little bit of a section of like Clause A, care for Australians, like just something.
This is something we've spoken about a lot on the podcast with particularly the independents. They're like, there's no HR in Parliament House. It's
Where do I
quite
sit
difficult.
if I
Quite an awful place to work.
Can you imagine having that job, though, being HR in Parliament?
Oh, I would love that. Can you imagine? I mean,
24/7.
I understand that in some ways, like elections are their job reviews, but like you do get a thing with in like I know at the ABC where you have to have a meeting with your manager every year, and they tell you if you are failing, meeting, or exceeding expectations as a like based on your job description, and if you get like a certain amount of exceedings, you get like a raise, and if you get a certain amount of fails, they cut you. Like I just think we could bring this in. We could bring in more bureaucracy to the bureaucracy.
And do the compliment sandwich as well. Like,
Yes.
Barnaby, you're doing great in these areas, but we just need a little more room for improvement here, and here.
Bob, everyone loves your hat. Your hat is really great.
But the sentences, they're long, Bob. They're very long.
But the boots, everyone loves the boots.
Beautiful boots.
But
And the fact that we don't know what ethnicity you are because it always changes, we love that.
You are right, Jeremy. There's so much more litigation happening. In 2024, there was 226 climate litigation cases launched against governments and corporations around the world, which is like the highest ever. So, maybe there'll be some more in Australia. Yeah.
Do any of them ever work?
Yeah, well, there was that one Dutch
was
one in
one.
2020,
There
and
was
that's
one.
why everybody's doing it, because this fucking Dutch court set the precedent. Now everyone wants to sue the government. That is it for Irrational Fear. Big thanks to all of our guests. James Blackwell on the line from Darwin, Jeremy Dicker on the line from God's Country in Queensland, and Lewis Hobber. Let's get our plugs on the way. James, what would you like to plug?
Oh, I've got nothing to plug other than visit Darwin, perhaps. I'm here on holiday, so nice time to be here. That's all I can say. I've got no plug.
Jeremy.
Darwin is great. I'll happily plug that. But also check out International Intrigue, which is what I'm doing now. We're a team of former Australian diplomats. And we put out a daily geopolitics briefing in your inbox. It's fun. It takes less than 5 minutes to read. And it's free. International Intrigue.
If you love geopolitics, it's really good. We'll put a link in the show notes and the newsletter. Go to irrationalfear.com to sign up. Lewis, what would you like to plug?
Just Irrational Fear, where we can come to your workplace or event. And you
Irrational Fear
sandwich.
Corporate.
You can pay me to keep my clothes on or off. I'll let you decide.
God, I think we need HR in this podcast. Big thanks to Road Mics, our Patreon supporters. We've got a couple of new Patreon supporters this week, and we'll read their names out next week. Jacob Round, also on the Teppanyaki timeline. Simon Kennedy for his incredible Trump impression. That was also good. Now, as promised, we have the Epstein list, and we will read it out right now. Here we go in 3, 2,